So Tom sent his follow-up and I emailed that to you.
Yes, I saw that.
So that was nice. Okay, Patty, I'm gonna send you these notes.
Hi, Preston.
Thank you.
Hello. Got it figured out this time.
Oh, great. Hi, Preston. And it's exactly 5 o'clock. And hi, David.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us tonight. I just want to start by saying that this is new for the Arts Commission and this committee, and we have discovered that it is such a tight timeline. We don't want to take any time away from you. The 30 minutes just flies by. So we'll let you go ahead and present to the committee. And if you answer any of the preconditioned questions that we sent out during your presentation, we won't ask those again, and we'll ask questions more organically.
Okay.
So, so welcome, and you can begin your presentation.
Let's see. David, are you driving that one?
No.
Very sweet, very sweet.
Let's see here. Do you try and press them? All right, here. Let's see if I can make it work.
Got it handy here, yeah.
So you try. Okay.
Okay, I got it here.
Okay.
Okay. You see,
Yeah.
you see the
Yeah, perfect.
okay.
Perfect.
So I wasn't really clear if we were presenting, you know, lots of old previous work that we had done, or if we needed to sort of, you know, discuss, you know, who, you know, what we do and, or not. But we ended up, we had an idea, so we're just going to dive right in and share it. So basically, you know, I've been doing glass since 1982. As a glass, you know, started as a glass blower. I've been, you know, showing galleries for, you know, well, since about 1987. But then I've been working with David, partnering with David to develop public art. He had had some successes with public art, and I basically, you know, we started working together on small projects, and then we started to do the public art together, and we've connected with many projects so far. And, you know, basically when we looked at the site and we talked about, you know, the Colonial Plaza, we talked about, you know, we saw it, we kind of came up with what we think is doable. So I just, you know, we're going to dive right in and just basically share what we came up with as a concept. So one of the, you know, things we, you know, talking about, you know, Colonial Plaza versus, you know, what would be a new name, Unity Plaza was something that we came up with just because, colonial has so many connotations in terms of, you know, imperialism, colonialism, whatever, however you want to look at it. And being a native artist myself, this is, when David and I discussed it, we came up with this idea here. And thinking about all of the different uses that, you'd like to, multi-purpose space. These are some of the thoughts that we had about that. So the idea was kind of based on some forms that we've worked on in the past, and these house posts, as you can see in the photograph on the right, that amber house post, and then there's a blue one on amber on the left, blue on the right. It kind of relates to these house posts. They're called. Sometimes people think they're doors, but they're not doors. They're decorative posts that cover the interiors of the house beams that are used in the interior of a longhouse. So the shape is more or less inspired by that. We're trying to think on a budget. This was something that is a little bit of a challenging budget, but based on some of the projects we'd worked on. But this is an idea came to mind pretty much right away. And so this is where we get basically the inspiration for the forms that David, do you want to chime in here on any details I'm glossing over?
No, you're doing great. I mean, it's essentially just when you put the post, the shape of the log over that house post cover, it creates kind of a very simple human form, basically. And it's something that relates up and down the coast, because like, as you see, like from Preston's culture, this type of application of it, if you go to the next page, then you see more of local use of the same kind of idea of basically having these posts that support these logs. This is Old Man House, a painting of Old Man. This painting's in Washington State Historical Museum in Tacoma, and it's a painting of Chief Seattle's summer house, which is actually like really close right here to where I live. But these kind of temporary summer structures are kind of ubiquitous, so that's kind of where the idea evolved from, is to find a way of like relating all of these things together and really essentially make a simple form of a figure, which is very traditional for this area and up north. Go ahead, Preston, and you can carry on.
Yeah. So this is essentially the concept drawing. Again, just a pretty simple but recognizable kind of form, based on those previous images, and also kind of thinking of bringing some kind of color and interesting sort of presentation, looking at some of the areas in the installation site, or the site where you would like to have these, looked like it was doable in a couple of different options. I guess we kind of determined that if we're selected and this is something that we wanted to go with. But basically these are Salish in design, so this is more of the local region, where Tacoma, Puyallup, Lakewood is, that whole it's basically a Salish tribal region. And so we felt like this would honor that sense of place and give a little bit of sense of scale, something interesting to kind of stand by or walk under, perhaps, depending on where they were located. And that was about it. So these kind of most likely these would be printed glass. So we've been working on elements of printing on laminated architectural glass, glass that's used for buildings essentially. So it's got the silicone membrane in the center of two pieces of glass, and then there would be it would be printed on the interior and then laminated together so that it would be very impervious to the elements, and it wouldn't change color over time, and just a really simple but impactful pieces, what we thought. And so here's the kind of the Photoshop sketch to kind of give you a sense of what it might look like. And
One more.
one more there.
I mean, I think part of the idea too is that you could, I mean, when we were listening to everybody talk about the uses of the space, as kind of a festive, gathering, dancing, musical, alive space. We want, and not only that, but it's a big, wide open space as well. And so in order to really make that budget do something that truly has some impact and some sort of cultural relevance, I mean, the idea was that you could put people with these, and it's like there's two figures always present there in that plaza that represent everybody essentially, and celebrate color as beauty, and allows people to interact with it, but also is doable for the budget, allows you to go out there and pressure wash these things and easily maintain them, and to get if like a piece of glass breaks, you can just print a new one out and replace it in case, you never know what's going to happen. So the idea was to try to get all those levels, to get some sense of scale, but to also provide something that people could actually interact with and live with and enjoy and take their selfies with, and all those things. And, you can run a conga line through those two guys, and then everybody would be having a great time.
Yeah.
And there's always somebody there also. There's like presence of people, presence of humanity, there, also, and juxtaposing the colonial idea, like showing pride in all of these things. So, I mean, so we really tried to listen to everything you guys were talking about, and also do something that truly had some impact, but is actually something that we can afford to put in there and do as well.
I think that was so that was essentially it.
That's it.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That is wonderful. That's really helpful to see the photos. I appreciate that you actually placed it in the Colonial Plaza. One thing that came up is we have events here, and if you have a big piece of art taking up the event space, you have to work around it. But what I see with yours, with those thin stands, it really doesn't actually take up space in the plaza while still being very central to the plaza.
Yeah, it gives it a sense of monumentality too. It gives it, places it, a little bit up, and gives some, I think it would be a really nice kind of architectural enhancement to some degree.
One question I have, and I'm going to open it up to the committee too, is you mentioned the Salish tribe. I believe it was the Nisqually tribe that spent a lot of time in that particular area. Do these speak to all the tribes, or?
Well, it's kind of representative of that particular region. I mean, you would call the Salish region, the whole Puget Sound area, and down to the coast of Oregon is considered, well, and then up into Vancouver as well. There's the whole area is referred to as Salish, and so that kind of honors the local community, which I think there, it's also, there's a real need for for that kind of artwork to be kind of showcased in public art. So we tried to go, I mean, those are kind of spirit faces. So they're, you know, sometimes they can be sort of humanoid masks. So it gives it, you know, it kind of refers to the, you know, the spiritual connection, ancestral spirits.
Thank you. So I'm going to open it up for questions from the committee.
I have a couple questions. I'm in my car. My teenager's driving, so I'm not. Well, thank you very much for the presentation. A couple of questions for you. So one of the hopes we have is that the art piece engages passersby as well as active folks walking and enjoying the plaza. What can we do by way of lighting that would give that some livelihood at night? Do you guys propose to have some lighting associated with it, either up lighting or something in the piece itself that might illuminate the glass discs?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, uplighting would be an option. I mean, depending on, you know, it would be preferable if it could be sort of a collaboration to some degree, if there was somebody that we could partner with, if there was somebody that was going to be, you know, in charge of, you know, that space. Lighting is something, you know, I think it'd be pretty easy to solve, but I guess we just have to figure that out. But I think that the uplighting would give it that really sense of architectural, you know, presence, and it should, you know, be pretty visible. You know, if you can spotlight it, should be able to see it from, you know, from the street level, or, you know, out onto the busier street out there. I think it would have some presence to it.
Right. Would the glass faces be more of a flat affect, or would they have a resin, or not a resin, but a cast character, so they'd be a little bit more dimensional? Or
no, they would. We're trying to work with the laminated glass, so it would be a flat glass, but it might have some sort of gradation to it, which would make it look a little bit, you know, like it had depth, like it was carved. But I think it was mostly just the painted printing technique is what we're looking at for this particular piece. That way we can.
And that would be.
Yeah, you'd be able to go a little bit larger in scale.
Right.
You know, the thing is, any handmade glass that would be, you know, sculpted and then cast would be a much more expensive process.
Right. Right.
And also, you know, I think it could be fairly durable, but it would be much heavier too. So this is thinking with, you know, engineering taken into consideration, the weight, you know, supporting the weight of the glass and all of that. I think that's what we're just thinking of the laminated glass. And so, of course, it's, you know, it would be more rated for public art because, you know, obviously it's laminated. If someone were to try to break it and it did break, then it wouldn't drop shards to the ground. You know, it's like windshield glass, so to speak. So.
Right. Okay. Very good. Those are the questions I had.
I have
and
a question.
The diameter
Hi.
of the glass.
Oh,
yeah, go ahead.
That was my question, Jason.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Patty. I was actually going to ask, what is the diameter of the glass and the height of the actual pieces?
What would we estimate there, Dave?
I have them at like 12 to 14 feet tall, and that piece of glass is probably 3 or 4 feet in diameter. It's not really, nothing's really to scale, you know, it's because I think that the scale and the placement really is something to be determined somewhat, you know, because when you put them far apart, they're kind of neat because they flank the space, but then when you put them close together, and actually in the picture, they almost look like different sizes and almost just looks like two people standing there. And like, that's kind of wonderful too. So I think some of that would be part of the development of it to really nail some of those things down.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
How delicate are they? If someone threw a rock, would it break?
How big of a rock?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, but that goes for a lot of windows, like,
Yeah.
I think that, when at least our experience in the past with public artwork of this nature that shows respect towards a wider community, that those things seem to survive pretty well. I mean, you can always get some kid that's going to throw a rock, but that goes for any window in Lake City or, Lakeview. So it's, Lakewood. So, it's a tough one, but it'll be pretty durable, and it can get to be pretty thick as well. Like some of these glass packets we work with are like an inch thick, so it would take a pretty good stone to knock that thing to crack it.
And plus, I have the very first public art piece I did where, stainless steel, sheet that was cut out, and then the back was, colored glass. And this was down Capitol Hill area in Seattle, which, we were installing, and some students were walking by. I was on Seattle University campus, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's," and it was on the wall, and you could reach up and touch it. And they're like, "That thing's going to get tagged in, in a week." And it hasn't been touched, in the 6 or 7 years it's been there. So, maybe, some people are more respectful than we like to think they are sometimes. I mean, of course, we're trying to, I think the laminated glass would be, obviously rated for the safety factor there. And, you wouldn't have falling shards of glass.
With the cast.
I have a question. I don't want to. I was going to say, the next step in the process is we're narrowing it down to 2 or 3 artists, and then paying them to do 2 or 3 designs. It's nice to see this. What other thoughts came up for you in this space, and given the challenges of this space? What thoughts came up for you of what you might do other than this?
Oh, well, usually, I mean, generally when we we analyze what these jobs are like, we usually come up with an idea, and it's almost always the first idea that we come up with that really resonates with us, and then it usually is the one that is selected. So in any case, we just wanted to, we had the idea, we wanted to share it with you right away, if that would weigh, give any, indication of what you might be getting and what have you. But I think that really, given everything that was discussed, and again, trying to leave more open space, I think that this is the perfect solution in our minds, because it does, it does allow for people to freely pass through and in between, and we haven't really done a piece like that where you could actually walk under it. So we thought, I don't know, that was just the thing that really stuck with us, and seemed to me, again, designing within a budget is always a consideration. Obviously, we've and you were very clear that was the budget that you had, and we're typically used to working with larger budgets, but this was kind of like an exercise in economy and design and all of the above. So that's why we wanted to just go right ahead and just share the idea with you.
No, I appreciate that. And what further research would you do if you were selected?
Well, Dave, got any thoughts about that one?
Well, we would learn and get to know all you guys a lot better, that's for sure. I mean, I'd like to explore Lakewood more, just because I have, like when you're doing public artwork, you often go to places that you wouldn't necessarily wind up at, right? And when you're doing that, you suddenly, over time and working with all of you guys and everything, you actually wind up feeling like part of this community. Like every community that we've worked with, we live with those pieces forever, as part of our portfolios. And so and just in presence, and so because we're leaving something in your community that takes a life of its own on. And so you really develop a pretty good relationship with people, and it's fun to explore places, like I want to go see these lakes and get to know it better, because you start to drive around there and you're like, oh, look what's over there and what's over there. And so, it's kind of some of that, and then when you make these things and you're installing them and working with the city people and the people who are going to be in charge of those pavers, they're all going to feel ownership of this. They're all going to feel, and all of you guys on the committee too, this is all of our contribution to the fabric of your culture and to represent what values you have, and we all have. And it's pretty obvious how important it was to you that this was truly the heart of your community and the livelihood of that neighborhood. And you're talking about all the festivals and all the music and everything that goes on in that place. And the ironic thing is when we were there, it was like totally empty. And so there'll always be two people to celebrate there. It's kind of the idea behind it. There's always this presence, and it's not just about any specific tribe or anything like that. It's also just appreciating the beauty of color, because here you have figures that will radiate color into your plaza. But it's also about everybody. There's lots of different groups have different kinds of indigenous heritage, right? And this is about all of those people, and so that's kind of the idea. And so, you have quite a challenge for a couple of artists to come in here.
Yeah.
It is a small budget, and you really need to make impact, and you need to do something in that space. It's not just going to get lost, and it'd be really easy to do that. And so we just were like, how do you go big and make something that's truly impactful, and that does try to not only relate, interact with, and be a part of the party that's going on there, but also shows, our respect for our cultures and ancestors and all of those things at the same time. So it's quite a list of stuff to go through. So we didn't have a lot of different ideas because there's only, it's right.
Hey, David, let me ask you a quick question, because I hear loudly and clearly that you guys paid great homage to trying to work a square peg in a round hole with all the configuration requirements, including budget. If you had a little bit more flexibility in the budget, how would that have changed your design concept to make more impact?
You probably do a little more with the metal. You probably do a little more with the glass.
Okay.
And you could maybe do a little more interesting lighting situation somehow, right? So
yeah.
But
yeah, it could go in so many different directions. It could, in terms of we've done steel structures with interior lights that kind of radiate through the glass and become a really dynamic piece. And so we've been kind of working with that format. This is kind of a little bit of a scaled back version of that, but also some thoughts about I don't know, that I would kind of guess that if the local tribal community wanted to potentially petition to use that space to some degree for some gathering, or maybe there's art markets, or who knows, that might be kind of a symbol that would be a welcoming presence for them. So I would see that as being some part of the I don't know, something that could develop, I would think. So
well, let me ask this, because I get to. So to do some of the extra metal, glass, and lighting things you're talking about, what would that potentially be as an additure on a budget?
Well, I think a lot of the budgets that we're working with, honestly, are around 200,000.
Mhm.
Um,
Got it.
Then that allows us to, to really kind of work with much more complex forms and what have
Mhm.
you. A lot of the work that we end up doing, we're working with contractors, subcontractors to cut the
Right.
metal out and do the fabrications and things like that. So it kind of comes in our bank account and then just transfers right out.
Got
So
it.
so that's just the nature of the process that we've learned. I mean, we've been doing, I think we did our first public art piece about 4 years ago, 4 years ago. And so we've learned a lot over the years of what really is doable. And so, yeah, so that's kind of
I appreciate it.
where
Yeah.
this has all been, how we arrived where we did with this particular presentation.
You bet. Well, I appreciate the input. Thank you.
Mhm.
That's a good question. Good to know. Our time has run out. If the committee members have any more questions for you, I'll email you. And if you think of any other questions that you have for us, just email me.
Okay.
Really appreciate your presentation, the time and effort you put in to show us your concept.
All right. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
again.
you, Preston.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our next artist is Paul Sorey. And Nikki, is Paul on yet?
Not.
We can take a minute to debrief until he's on. So that was new to have an actual concept. Any thoughts to share? Any questions that you have for them for me to follow up on?
I thought it was really clever. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It's an interesting issue that we're going to have as a committee for somebody who's come with a full-on proposal versus ones who are showing us their portfolio.
Mhm.
I'm laughing at myself because I put on my Sun Moon shirt, not
There
knowing.
you go. Yeah. What the heck, Lonnie?
I love it. I love the whole idea of the edge lighting. If there could be, so it would glow at night and
Gotta
then
have some lighting.
and the daylight shining through those things.
Yep.
I get where he's coming from, and they're tall, but you could stand underneath them and do yoga poses or whatever for your selfies. I mean,
Mhm.
really interesting.
I like the connection too to the Salish culture, and as you look at Preston's evolution as an artist, he is streamlining the simplicity economy of design. So this is very much in line with his current development, and as Lonnie was saying, the light and the glass and the steel will be quite dramatic as it will react to the daylight in different conditions. It's ever changing with that combination of glass and steel, so it will be very much kinetically responding to its environment.
Well,
Do you think that we'd end up getting something that's pretty scaled down though, Susan? Because you
Yes.
seem very concerned about budget.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Paul's on the line.
Okay, we'll chat.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
So you can hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes. Welcome.
And then you can see me.
Yeah.
Doing the video by computer, and then the phone is the audio. So.
Okay, we can see you and hear you. Thank you so much for being with us.
Sure.
I'm going to let you dive into your presentation.
Pardon me?
We're going
dive right in.
to let you just dive into your presentation. And
All right.
make it
I'm gonna
interactive as well.
I'm going to share my screen then. Well, I'm just going to, so basically when I do a public art project, sorry, my voice is a little been acting up lately ever since I got the shot. So I'm also trained as a landscape architect. So when I see a site, I think of it in terms of basically creating a welcoming space. And a lot of times also I see, things that I perceive as problems with the space, which I can sometimes address. For example, in this space, it was just a big, wide open, expansive concrete. So I really thought it needed something. Also, the scale of the entry is like super large. And so, so those are the two things that I felt like I did was sort of bring the scale down to more pedestrian size, and then to break up that space and to provide a reason for it to be that big. So that, it's nice with this piece in there. It's nice that the space is big because there's lots of space to move around, but it also acts as a sort of a refuge from that big space. This piece also shows something that I do a lot is I use multiples. So, and the reason I like multiples is because they kind of create a interesting space in between, and I try to make kind of a variety of spaces in between. So, and that to me makes them interactive because people like to feel their bodies in a space, not in a big space, but in a cozy space. So I'm trying to create just a variety of sort of cozy spaces, and that just causes people to interact with it. And I like to make the pieces touchable, so that also makes them interactive. People like to come and touch, and in this particular piece, people, might put their foot up on it while they're talking on the phone, or it's just there is something sort of comfortable about it. So that also attracts interaction, and people interact with each other. Like you could say, hey, meet me out there, or you might see your friend and you kind of pull off into a little space in there and hang out with your friend for a while. There's another one that basically functions similarly. Like there's a lot of traffic, huge amount of pedestrian traffic in this this pathway. So I created a little space to sort of pull off to the side. I haven't actually been out there to observe people using it because it was sort of in the middle of the winter and raining. So, but I imagine that, you might stop and talk to somebody or tie your shoe or something like that. This particular one at night has lights. So, this piece also creates a variety of spaces. One thing about this piece is it doesn't require a big footing. Those other two that I showed you require pretty massive footings. So I don't think those are going to work in this space. So something like this that can be kind of bolted. These are just bolted to the concrete slab. I don't know how thick the slab is out there, but hopefully it's like a 6-inch slab, that 6 or 8 inch, that's actually designed for some kind of traffic, maybe fire access, hopefully. But so that's one that could be attached just to the concrete. This one also is attached to the concrete, but actually there is a small footing beneath it. But this is another piece that is just attached to the concrete. And again, it's a multiple and it creates some interesting spaces. This is just an outdoor lunch space. And so it's interactive in that people can sit in different places and positions themselves, maybe for a group conference over here or just off to the side here. It also functions as, it could function as a cribbage board. I don't know if they use it as a cribbage board, but I provided them with cribbage pieces that they can use. So probably not appropriate for this space. But perhaps something I have thought, something like this, but instead of holes, like to have lights, colored LED lights that move around, perhaps that would provide some kind of interactive thing as well. And another, this one actually did require a bunch of small fittings, but it also provides, a variety of places to sit. So can I go on to my observations of the space?
Please.
Okay. So I see, I wouldn't want to put something like here for various reasons, because one, because there's not a, if there's kids having fun, maybe running around and stuff, I don't know, I feel nervous about them being able to run out into this space, even though it's, closed to traffic. A lot of times it's not closed to traffic. So, plus, I know that you want to keep the space flexible as possible. So I would hate to put something right out in the middle. But that, to me, would drastically reduce the flexibility in that area. So, and then I talked about things that I might observe. Well, that's sort of one problem in the space that I can't really fix, and I'm not interested in fixing it. Here's a problem that I see. It's not necessarily a problem. It's just, for me, the space leaks out. It kind of just goes on, and there's the parking lot. And so I've been kind of drawn to this area right here to sort of, if I could create something like a series of multiples, that would just sort of create a bit of a screen so that the space doesn't leak out so much. It's still penetrable. You can still walk through it. There's no barrier, but it just provides a visual screen. So say, imagine something like the salmon waves in that space, probably a little more spread out, I'm not sure. But to me, that would kind of solve that. I love the big openness of the space, but then as it goes off into that farther area, it just seems like there's no end to it. There's no demarcation very much. It does close down a little bit. And so I would basically build off of that closing down and just reinforce it a little bit with something across there. So that's kind of and then the other thing about, I really hate to do anything to this, to the paving there, both
Right.
because it looks so nice just as a carpet. So I don't feel like I really want to interrupt it. And it seems really complicated to try to pull up the bricks and replace them so that everything's still compacted and nothing's going to shift. Whereas if they go out to this concrete area, it becomes much simpler, say, to either bolt directly to the concrete or maybe cut a channel in there to bring wiring through there. And that's all very easy, or easier to patch and to make it look new again. So those are my thoughts about the space. Also, I like if people were kind of gathering in this area, which they might, from the cars and from sitting on the bench here, you could look into the shade towards the building and at the same time have sun coming from behind whatever it is, and then get some kind of effect like this with the sort of glowing glass. I'm really interested in that, creating that kind of color. So that's how I would create color, is to use some kind of glass in a safe way like this, where it's not like some big chunk's gonna break off, but just to provide a glow. So that space really works well to me also for that kind of glow, creating that glow.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, it's against against the shady wall. And so any questions up to this point, or you want me just to go on answering the questions?
I'm sure we all have plenty. Let me interject and ask you, and this is Jason Whalen. So as a landscape architect guy and an artist, and having viewed the plaza, do you have a thought as to whether this area speaks for more of a gateway piece that's iconic, or more of a smaller interactive piece in the center, such as the pictures you're showing us here?
Are you talking about this space in particular that I'm looking at here, or the whole space?
Well, I'm talking about the whole space, because we have some gateway areas at the front where it comes off a Gravity-like drive and flows into the space, as some areas that people have talked about, or some of the interior spaces such as you've identified here. So I was just curious from your perspective as a landscape architect and an artist, what your thought would be. This is the best site.
Well, I thought some of the places that we looked at as potential gateway places, to me, it's just a little bit amorphous out there. I don't know. I feel like it would need like planting, things like that. And it's a little too, I don't know, it's just a little bit too much associated with the traffic directing traffic around, that kind of thing. I would see, maybe I don't particularly love the idea of gateways. I mean, sure, a gateway across the boulevard there could be nice. That would be a huge structure, and like I said, it could be nice. In fact, if you could create sort of again, it's not quite as much as looking in the other direction, but the space does kind of leak out. So I would use a gateway as a way to also kind of, create a sense of enclosure. There's not nearly enough money in this budget to do anything like that.
Got it. Thank you.
Any other pithy questions?
Well, I have more unless someone else is going to interject, but go ahead. I don't want to monopolize here.
Ask away, Jason.
Lighting. So lighting's important to many of us and to the council to kind of, create a sense of place and draw people in, interest at night versus just the daytime. Have you thought about how you would integrate lighting with a project?
Yeah, I would tend to make it integral with the piece itself, like this piece, or let's see what else. Yeah, these are going to have lights inside, so they're going to cast light around them, and it's also going to move because the lights move in sequence. So create kind of a feeling of motion.
Yeah, I like the benches. Those are neat.
in terms of, I don't like uplighting generally. It just creates, to me, an odd lighting. It's odd lighting. You don't, in nature, you don't have uplighting. So the light on these is basically reflected from the light fixtures. And then I have internal lights as well. So
Great.
creates a nice,
Mhm.
so I think something like that. With stainless steel, which I would definitely use in this situation because it's, it's a bright, active, reflective, sparkly, durable.
Mhm.
You can touch it. Yeah, it's got some problems. It gets warm, but not. I've found that if you ventilate, like I tend to have holes in my pieces, and I think what really causes them to heat up is like if air is trapped in there and it just gets hotter and hotter and hotter.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's my feeling about lighting. I think it seems like you have some pretty good. I didn't totally pay attention to the lighting, but I thought there's certainly, I'm sure you created enough lighting out there to meet the basic standards of lighting. And, and at night, that'll reflect off of stainless steel.
Mhm. That's a good idea too.
Stainless steel picks up color, from the sky, from the brick color. So it'll like be kind of surfaces that point down will pick up the red from the bricks and from the buildings and from above the sky. So stainless is I think it's pretty colorful, except on a cloudy day, and then it's definitely gray.
Paul, you've given us so much to think about that I hadn't thought about before in terms of the space and how to break it up. And I appreciate your insights on not wanting to build on the brick and the safety of children and people in the area. It's a lot of really good information. And also, a lot of your pieces speak to water, and we have so many lakes here in Lakewood. Given the budget and, how much were the canoe benches roughly?
Well,
Yeah.
I kind of got myself into a bit of trouble on that one because the woman, it was a private commission basically, and then she turned it over to the city, to the Parks Department. So she wanted a certain thing, and first I told her she should find another artist because I didn't want to do what she said. And she said, no, I want to work with you. But she basically wanted one boat, and I just and maybe I had budget for two boats. But so it was, let's see, 50,000 for the boats, 15,000 for the lighting, and then the paving. That's about a $90,000 worth of inlay paving, which I didn't have to pay for out of my budget. So that was great. But to me, that really, I didn't really like the piece without the paving. So it needed that
Movement.
to sort of tie it together. I didn't want them just out there floating. So, so I guess 65,000 was my part of it just for the boats.
For one boat or for all three?
No, for all three.
Uh-huh.
Like I said, it was a little bit more than I wanted to do for the budget, but
right.
When I feel strongly about something, and then I felt like the whole project was really coming together because I got to influence the shape of the walls and the paving and all that stuff. So sometimes it's just worth it.
Yeah.
But I can't be doing that all the time.
Yeah.
I think what I was going to say too is this, well, anyways, it speaks to water and we have a lot of water. Wood.
Uh-huh.
But I guess I was wondering, given our budget, what further research would you do to come up with a concept for this space of what you would actually propose should you go on to the next phase with the $90,000?
I think I missed the part of your question, but I think the gist is, well, let's see, someone in your group near the end of our site tour said, oh, and make sure it's unmistakably Lakewood, not Tacoma. And I was kind of curious about that. Like, is there something that, besides just putting this, and I don't do lettering or anything like that. So how would you define Lakewood versus Tacoma or some other place? Or do you want it to be immediately recognizable as being Lakewood?
Well, I don't know who said that, but we're really looking to the artists to guide us. And for artists, a big part of this is the research into the history of Lakewood to help them come up with the idea. I was just wondering, from your standpoint, how would you perceive in terms of your research? You've done, obviously, we love your work. It's just beautiful and attractive. For this site, how would you come up with your idea?
Well, I guess I would ask you folks about, is there anything in the history of Lakewood or, you mentioned lakes, so lakes, Lakewood, water.
Yeah.
I think that, like you said, my work tends to, at least it's curvilinear and has a graceful motion to it. So I think that evokes water. I don't feel like I would do a whole lot of research unless somebody really pointed me to something that, they said, you ought to kind of take a look at this, or if there's some, historical thing. I've done projects where I did a project in Pacific Washington, and they used to do farming out there. So they gave me money to interview locals, and I ended up interviewing some, like a Japanese farmer that had been displaced and sent to one of those concentration camps during World War II, and he lost his farm. So, but it seemed like the kind of farming they did out there back then was really nice. It was like, and some of the people in the town told me, yeah, they used to go out as kids and work on those farms. So there was kind of a warm feeling in the town about those little truck farms, they called them. And so I don't know what the history of Lakewood is.
Yeah. So, am I hearing you right that you would be looking to us for direction on your ideas of what you would make? Because just history. If there's something in history that you think I should look at, otherwise, yeah, I'm gonna come up with my own. Like in this particular case, the woman asked me if I would make a copy of these Taiwanese boats. And I said, no, I don't do that. You should find another artist. But my compromise was, she gave me another $15,000 to do these tiles back there. And the tiles actually refer to the boats that she wanted. I wanted to give her what she wanted. But I didn't want to, I told her I would approach the project as a modern sculptor, and I would do boats, but they were going to be my boats. And maybe they would have sort of an Asian feel to them. And, but, I was going to make the boats the way that it made sense to me. So I guess I would take your cue as, something to do with
lakes and water and kind of do something like that. But I wouldn't. I'd rather not be like, unless it's something that actually inspires me and that it is actually something that would be meaningful to the people in the town. Like, when I did the Pacific Washington and I found out about the farms, I based my design around crops. Basically made these benches that looked like pea pods and a fountain that looked like a squash blossom. So, so that was good inspiration for me. But
what inspired you about this space? Why did you want to get involved with this project?
Because you asked me to, and because, well, I like the idea of it quite a bit. I mean, I like the idea of having a gathering space, a multi-use space, a civic space, an urban space. Those are the reasons. I mean, I like the fact that, at certain times there'll be lots of people there and that people are welcome there anytime.
Thank you.
Well, it's a fantastic opportunity, and we really appreciate your time. This is great.
So Paul, this is Lonnie Neal. I love your work. And I don't know if this is really a comment or a question, but so one of the things we have here in Lakewood are, they're called the Gary Oaks. Right, Gary, like the name Gary, Garrry.
No, Garrry.
Yep. And your tall flower pieces to me really evoke the idea of our oak trees. So I'm just throwing that out there. There's something with the way the curves are and the leaves could be and lighting possibly. And of course the waves are definitely a thing because we have lakes. So that's my comment or question.
Okay. Well, I love trees. I mean, I'm proposing an aspen grove. Or actually, I was going to, but I decided that's a $130,000 project. And I decided I don't have enough budget for that because it requires a huge footing. Like the footing for this piece here is 9 feet by 9 feet by 18 inches deep.
Wow.
So it's like you dig down 24 inches and pour a footing down there full of concrete. I think my engineers sort of, well, that's what engineers do. They over design.
They like concrete.
But yeah. And so that eats up a whole lot of budget right there. And plus the engineering, that eats up some more. So I'd like to get by without the engineering and without the big footings. So unfortunately, that means no tall elements unless somehow I could make them lean against each other and be sort of self-supporting. It still requires a footing, but not as much, I guess.
We probably can help with engineering if we ever get to that. We have a few on staff.
Oh, yeah?
So.
Sounds good.
It's always a possibility.
Yeah, that's great. That's really good information, Paul. I appreciate you saying that.
It is.
That there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the ground that we're not seeing there.
Exactly. That's a budget item too. Yeah.
Is it just compacted earth and gravel under the pavers, or is there a sub slab?
I have to. It's been a while since I walked out there when we did the work, we'd have to check with our engineering staff, but I think there was a sub slab under parts of it. And then they did sand and then pavers.
Mhm.
I can find that out for you.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're saying to go high, you need the expensive engineering. So that rules
Yep.
that out. Even if it's
Substructure.
narrow like that, you still have to go deep.
Yeah. Well, you have to go wide, basically.
Okay.
And, you know, the engineering, it costs me because I have to produce drawings that the engineers can then evaluate. And we go
Right.
back and forth a couple of times. So I'm able to keep the engineering costs down by basically doing the drawings for the engineers. I don't know if I have a special relationship with my engineer or if that's something people do sometimes, but yeah, I usually spend about $6,000 on engineering,
Oh, gosh.
and that's just to pay the engineer. So hopefully there wouldn't be real complicated drawings that I would need to make for this piece. That would keep the cost down too.
I love the color because it's so gray here. It's just so gray. And,
Yeah.
that way during the day, you know, you have that pop of color, which is really kind of festive, and it's a festive street.
Mm-hmm.
Is that discolored steel? Are the petals steel as well?
These it's actually resin.
Okay.
So it's actually not a good solution, as the resin can fade over time.
Powder coated would probably be better. Aluminum or something.
Yeah, but then you don't get the translucency. What I like is to have light coming through from the sky through it into your eye, because that's when the colors, it's like a stained glass window. It's like intense.
Right. Yeah.
So I would want to, you know, maybe use different colors, but something like this, but not up high. So, you know, that's a problem then. Like if you got glass where people can touch it, access it, that could be a problem. So that's a little design problem there.
Paul, we've gone over our time.
Okay.
So thank you so much. This was incredibly informative. You brought to light a lot of things.
Oh, good.
Were new and good, very good to hear and consider. And we'll stay in touch. And thank you. If you have any questions,
All right.
you can email me, and same with the committee. We'll send out any emails that we need for follow-up.
Okay.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Paul.
Sounds good.
Stay on, and we'll let
Yeah,
you
great.
Thank you.
Thank
Nice
you,
to meet
Paul.
you.
Paul, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank
You
you.
bet.
If y'all have a moment to debrief, I'd love to be able to do that.
Sure. Is the artist still on or is he off or?
He's still here for now.
Not Paul.
We're still being recorded though, correct, Sally?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, Paul's signing off, but while he's doing that, I just thought it was really interesting about the gateway comments, and his perspective on that. What did you think, Jason?
Well, I think my overall perspective is siting is going to be one of the challenges for this site, whether it's a gateway piece or an interior piece. It's got to be the right piece in the right spot to really have impact. And, you know, I think that the right gateway piece could work. I think 2 artists ago the other day, there was Haddon Dugan people. They could do something cool, but it may not be what we want. We may want something that's more intimate and fun, like the other gentleman yesterday. I forget his name. I've got all the names written down, but
Peter?
yeah,
Oh,
Is it
Peter,
I
I
like
think.
Peter.
Yeah.
Peter
Yeah.
Rockwell.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Peter.
so that could be kind of a fun one. Singleton today, I thought was interesting. I like the concept. I mean, he localized his concepts to Lakewood, the native culture, which I think is important. The a sense of space and sizing. I think he actually put some thought into with the structure and the glass, but it came through loud and clear, Sally. That budget is an inhibitor for him,
Yes.
as it is for the others who are being honest, except for the
Yeah.
gentleman, Peter, who talked about he does his own fabrication and can save some money, which is a factor for sure. But I think we need to, when we get through the rest of them, whittle this down to the 3 or 4 that we think we like. I don't think it should be 2. I think it should be at least 3, maybe 4, maybe 3 that we think are the top 2. And then we need to have a heart-to-heart with them about concepts and whether they can do it within the 90, because there's some substructure that's got to be done that takes away from everything. Then you're talking, if the substructure to do it right is 10 to 15 to 20,000, with lighting, which I will not bless a project that does not have lighting. I won't take it to council unless there's lighting. I just won't do it. And so we have to get something that makes sense. And if we need more money, we can get it, but we need to be honest about that with ourselves.
Yeah.
I agree. And when they come to us with the proposals, like for the next final 3, if we could give them a more solid number and we come with that, I really want to see solidly what they would be proposing. I would hate to go down the same road that we went with the last person.
Right.
So, I mean, we need to be very locked in on what their proposal is, of course, with tweaks and things like that. But,
Well, remember, I think we're giving them the chance to we're paying them each like $2,500 to come up, which takes away from the 90, right?
Yeah.
We're paying them some money to come up with some design concepts so they feel like they're getting something for their work, which is fine. But I do think we need to, if we get down to the 3, we need to have a heart-to-heart about a range, maybe. And I know, and Sally, you got to rely on us to push for you to get that. And I know we're not pushing on staff. Staff should be pushing on council, and we'll be happy to play that card. And I'm completely comfortable that we can get additional resources that we need to do it right. Because, and Susan, Singleton better than I do, obviously.
Yes.
I was concerned that it seems I love the concept, but it seems so scaled down and so flat in the affect. I thought, it might get lost. But if you can get some dimension to the glass work, maybe some oomph to the steel work, it could be a cool concept with the right lighting.
I totally agree with you, Jason. It is definitely scaled down.
Yeah, right.
I think he's reflecting his experience, though, and what this stuff really costs.
Well, he subs a lot of it out.
What did you say?
I said that I think he was reflecting, being honest. Yes, exactly. About
Preston is a very
and it's a wise point to think about the footings and all the hidden stuff that you're not really seeing that are going into that. So as a committee, we have to, if we don't have the money, then we're going to have to get realistic about what can we get with what we've got.
Right.
Yeah, and Preston jumped from the 90,000 to 200,000. So that's
pretty quickly. Yeah. I think 200 might be a stretch for us, but I'm pretty comfortable that we could get another 50 to get this thing up to 150.
Yeah. So what do you think about glass? I mean, are there some liabilities? What is that something we can work with?
Not up 12 to 14 feet. I don't think anyone's going to.
Yeah,
I think it's going to be fine.
Everything he's constructed from my professional background is like, would be just fine. Yeah.
And I like that he had the narrow footing because that was the budget thing, right? So he was thinking of that.
Mm-hmm.
I think when we select our artists, we, really knowing this, if you have a bunch of benches and things that are going to take up and need a lot of footing, that's going to add expense.
Yeah, totally. I didn't quite understand how the dimensions were of the, what do you call them? The people sort of statues, but they were, what were they? 18 by 18, maybe, we don't know yet, but reasonably sizable, so they're substantial, but not so big that it wouldn't be reasonable to do footings to hold them, right?
Mhm, mhm.
And we could get into that if we want to, but
Yeah, theirs look taller, but like I don't think they needed as much footing on those because they weren't as like wide.
okay.
And the last guy, Paul, was saying that he really needs the width.
Yeah.
Not, yeah.
No, I
Well,
like
yeah,
Paul's stuff.
It's either
but I think-
it's either width or depth. You're talking
Yeah,
about like a
exactly.
big
Yeah.
anchor. I mean,
Yeah.
you're anchoring like a big pendulum. So
Mhm.
however you execute that, yeah.
So
Yeah.
if we're thinking narrow, because we're going to have to narrow down a little bit, I would probably put Paul toward the end of my list simply because I didn't think he made much of an attempt to localize the art at all to us. It was focused on his portfolio, and I didn't get a sense that he put a lot of effort into saying this is what would be cool for this space.
Yeah.
So that's just me. I love I love the salmon waves. That would be cool though, and some of the water featured stuff would be kind of neat, but.
And I think it was me that said something about Lakewood. I just want it to be identifiable with Lakewood. So when you see this artwork or gateway or interactive piece, whatever it is, that it's in Lakewood. It doesn't have to be like, oh, it's a full representation of our city, but we
Right.
need
It's just
something. Yeah.
something cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how are we going to communicate that to the artist? How are we going to communicate that to the artist? Like when he asked today.
Well, I think I was hopeful that he would actually come back and have done some work. I think the others had.
Exactly.
I think Larry had. I think I certainly think that the gentleman, I keep forgetting his name. I got my notes somewhere else. The gentleman yesterday with the Raven, the French fry dude. Yeah. I thought he was a little bit more portfolio, but I can do something cool. I really think it should be an interesting interactive piece given the site. I think he thought a lot about the site.
And also he does his own fabrication. That was
yes.
Save some money.
I mean,
Yeah.
Big
you're
savings.
going to get a bigger bang for your buck.
Bigger bang for your buck, and he's willing to use bronze, which is a huge
Right.
deal. I think bronze would be much more durable for the site and cool, and and he was using glass and suggested that wouldn't be a problem. He did the one at WSU in Spokane. I love that bookcase look, the interaction with steel and glass and light.
Yeah, they were really fun, and each one had a little story to it that you could rip off of. And that's what I was thinking too. The fabrication, how much he can save by doing it himself at this stage of the budget that we have.
Yep.
Even 150 would be great.
He could probably do some pretty grand. I'm sure he could do some grand stuff with a little bit maybe more structure to it or something.
Yeah.
Some height to it.
Yeah.
What I liked about Paul today was he had this nice mix between interactive and height. But again, I think budget with him is going to be might have to be so scaled down that we can.
Right.
So for tomorrow, we're doing our voting and we're continuing this dialogue. That meeting needs to end at 6 sharp. But
do we have any others tomorrow, or is this it?
That was it. That was our. It
was okay.
Now,
wow, what do you guys think? I'm drinking wine, so I can think a lot.
I have to go back and watch a couple of the videos.
Right.
I missed a couple of presentations there, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back and.
Can we hire all of them?
Well, you know what? I'm already thinking as a board member of this esteemed place called Lakewood Gardens that maybe down the road when we do the carriage house, that we might be able to incorporate another piece of public art from one of these folks in that.
Well, there's always that possibility, Jason.
I have to tell you, Susan, at the council meeting the other night, it was Mr. Boki who said, gee, maybe we need to think about throwing a little bit more lodging tax toward the carriage house project.
Oh, yes, please.
So we'll talk.
Thank you. We need a lot of money.
Yeah, I get it.
So
what did you think, Sally? What did you
Well,
like?
I'm so pleased with everyone. And so we had 2 per day, and I kind of picked my favorite from each day.
Yeah. Day one.
I felt like John Fleming was very close to Peter in terms of his research into the area,
Mhm.
enthusiasm for the area.
Yeah.
And I really think he can do something amazing. I really liked Peter, and I really like Preston, and he's just such a famous person. My question is, let's say we get more money, we're not going to get $200,000. So is it even, can we give him enough to make it something special?
Right.
I think you could
You have
ask
to be
him.
careful with drawings. They never reflect the actual thing.
Yeah. I think that's a fair question to ask Sally. I mean, if we can find some additional funds, great. But if we do, that's a question that you can ask. He's very straightforward.
I wonder, Sally, I mean, I'm just thinking out loud for a minute. If, for example, the group liked Singleton at the end of the day, because it has a little bit of a Native American flavor to it, if council was able to get another 50 to round it up to 150, and if the Nisqually tribe were to sponsor something, having some sort of flavor and input, I bet we could get 25 out of Nisqually.
That's an interesting idea.
So, Ariani, we haven't heard from you. You've been so vocal in all these meetings. Do you want to opinions today?
Hi. So I still really like Peter. I'm pretty sure that's his name. I'm gonna go back. Yeah, I still really like Peter. I think it's because I feel like he did his research on what would be a little bit more personal to Lakewood. I think you guys are trying to find something that's unique to Lakewood. So not like a more general art piece, but something that's a little just more connected to the city. And I don't know, I just feel like Peter was really able to do that just based off of the artwork that he's shown. I feel like it was just really interactive, and not too grand. I'm basically repeating what I said yesterday, but this is, just still my same thought process. Just not something that you would see in like a bigger city, but it just felt more like a homey, I don't even know if that's the right word, but like more of like a home kind of art piece. Like I feel like locals would be able to see that and feel like it was something that resonated with them, and it wasn't just like a random piece of art. So
yeah, we don't want random. I agree.
Yeah.
So I would say, I agree that he had this really unique ability. Every single piece of artwork absolutely was the essence of that area or that community. He was able to distill it down, and because of that, it got so much engagement from the community where his art is.
And I think he did say that he said something that was really resonated in that, not everybody goes to art museums. And to have a piece that is so accessible, like his portfolio, each piece was dear to the community that it was in.
Yeah.
So there's something about a warmth to the pieces.
It'd be kind of interesting. He could do something that would be interesting. I liked his chair concept because then that's engaging. But he could do maybe a piece of a trunk of a Gary oak and then have some, little bronze acorns around that people could sit on that were oversized and funky.
With him, I'd actually trust him to distill down what is Lakewood and what makes us different to Tacoma more than we might be able to do as a group. I really like he has ability.
I really appreciate an artist that does their homework. There's so many facets to being an artist. Yes, you are the creative spirit, but you have to have a business side and be able to sell your pieces if you want to be a viable artist.
Right.
And doing research and having a good sales pitch is part of it. And I want someone that's interested in this project and interested in it. And I think that really has come through in a few of these.
Remind us of the first two on Monday so we can get those in our heads real quick. Who are the first
Mary
two?
Koss and she's
Okay.
known for her steel cutting.
Right,
Yeah.
right. I
And
saw that.
John Fleming.
And Fleming. And then last night we had Haddon Dugan, Drugan, and
Peter.
Peter.
Peter. Yeah.
So it seems to me it's like John Fleming, Peter, and maybe Singleton to reduce it down to the 3.
Mhm.
And that would be my thought.
That's where I am.
I want to watch. Are those the 2 from yesterday? Of course.
Peter was yesterday with Haddon Drugan. I keep screwing up their name, but they had some really cool stuff. But they're
Oh,
They're
to be
very
honest,
expensive.
they're probably bigger
Yep.
than what we are looking at, and they're not quite as localized to what can be maybe Lakewood. They would do a good thing for 200 grams. We don't have 200 grams.
Right.
Right. And Mary's great, but the scale of the piece, for example, that's going down down the waterway.
The Dykeman Mill thing, that would be like
Huge.
300,000.
It was huge. I mean, there's like massive cranes and
Yeah.
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 Cool though. Yeah.
Oh, it's very cool. It's just down from where I live, so I can walk by it every day and see the scale of the operation.
Well, do you feel like we need another meeting tomorrow? Do you want to sit on this or?
I think we should have another meeting tomorrow and just mull it overnight.
Yeah, that sounds good. And they are all recorded if you want to go back and refresh your memory.
Do you have the ability, Sally, to send those out in an email, like the little Facebook or YouTube videos of those, or?
I can see what I can do. Sure.
A link would be great of some sort.
Nikki, are you with us?
Yeah, I can send out a link in just a little while.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, this has been fun, Sally. Thank you for all your work.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yes.
Thank you, Sally.
Did a nice job.
And
Yeah,
thank
really
you.
good job, all of
Yeah,
you.
you guys are doing a great job.
It's been fun.
So again, for tomorrow, that needs to end at 6 sharp.
Yes.
And just remember, the more we pick, the more comes out of the budget, even though I think we're looking at giving a stipend of $1,500 for design concepts. Just keep that in mind. If we pick 4, then
Well, what we should do is say 1,500 for design concepts, but if you're selected, it goes toward the overall budget. So that way we get some bang for a buck.
Yeah.
Just something to keep in mind.
Yep.
And we'll go from there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you. Tomorrow at
See ya.
5, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thanks.